Hey there, and welcome to Porsche Club Insider episode 11. We are back at the podcast studio at 5 North Main. Special thanks to our folks upstairs, the Coffee Bar Bel Air. And I am back with our insider crew. I'm your host, Vu Nguyen, PCA's executive director, here with PCA's technical director, Manny Albin, Rob Sass, Porsche Panorama editor, and Damon Lowney, PCA's digital media coordinator. We have a special guest all the way from Germany, the man we call the Yes Man. Gentleman's been at Porsche, I believe, 36, 37 years. He's right in Stuttgart. He's the manager of factory restorations at Porsche Classic. Uwe Makrutzki. Uwe, welcome.
A warm welcome as well from my side.
And although we're seeing him online today, we were very fortunate that he was with us last weekend. Was it last weekend?
2 weekends ago.
2 weekends ago at Works Reunion, and we'll get a little bit more into that. But Uwe, as we go through our topics, until we get to Works Reunion and until we get to the Classic Club Coupe, I welcome you to, chit chat with us on any of the topics that we cover.
My pleasure.
So let's just jump right in. We've been doing quite a bit in the club, and we won't go into cars projects that we've been doing personally because we've got a lot to cover. But we do want to cover some news, Porsche news, and probably headlining, and many people may know supply chain issues, but what that means to Porsche.
Well, there's a lot of disappointed people, obviously, who are putting orders in for Porsches and dealers that are waiting for Porsches, and throw in the whole boat sinking fiasco. Obviously, the crisis and the war in Ukraine has affected the supply chain, and Porsche's announced pretty much
The halt of
indefinite shutdown because as much as I think that anyone who's in manufacturing can plan for backup suppliers, I don't think anyone plans for a war of this magnitude where your supply chain's cut like this. I mean, it was hard enough planning for a pandemic, but throw in a war, it's got to be tough for everything in Europe right now.
And Uwe, I don't know how much you can comment, but we understand that wiring harnesses and such come from the Ukraine. Obviously, in Germany and being part of the war, this supply chain issue, as much as we love our cars and wish they are available, but we certainly understand the difficulties that manufacturers such as Porsche is going through. So I thought I'd just mention that real quickly. We don't need to go into politics and such, but we do understand that there is an issue, but Porsche is going to do their best to, I'm sure, catch up at some point when they can. More on the fun side, I know that Mr. Sass went to Texas to an event called South by Southwest, which I don't know much about. And the reason why you went is because Porsche had a presence there. So maybe you can share with our listeners what went on there.
Yeah, Porsche was doing something called Porsche Unseen, and they were showing some of the concept cars that had never before been seen, that they showed pictures of probably about 6 or 7 months ago. But the biggest thing there was an announcement that they did in conjunction with Pixar, the animation studio in California. Jay Ward, who's the creative director of franchise for the Cars series of movies, was there, along with Bob Pauly, his coworker of 20 years, who's a character designer. And they talked a lot about, they actually had Sally Carrera there. They talked a lot about the origin of how they actually built a functional life-size Sally Carrera out of a 996 that was culled from the press fleet. But the big announcement was that they are doing a 992-based Sally Carrera-inspired one-of-one car that they are going to auction with RM Sotheby's at a date to be announced later. And that was a lot of fun to see. I mean, watching two giant creative talents like Jay Ward and Bob Pauly talking about the origin of Sally Carrera, and then talking about this updated version that's going to be a 992 in the signature color of Sally blue, with some updated I think either 20 or 21 inch versions of the classic 18-inch turbo twists. It looks like it's going to be really interesting. And Porsche also announced during South by Southwest that one of the charities that the car sale is going to benefit is going to be Ukrainian children, refugees, kids who've been impacted and displaced by the war. So I thought that was a particularly wonderful touch by PCNA and Porsche AG.
So the car itself, we've been fortunate to have the 996, the original Sally Carrera, at Porsche Parade, and we've seen it at the museum and other events around PCA. That was not really a functioning drive. I mean, you could drive it, but you couldn't see out the windshield really.
There wasn't up, and
there wasn't much of an interior, and it was shortened, and it was a caricature shaped vehicle. This car that they're building, I'm guessing it's like Sally Carrera themed, but it's not going to be a caricature of a car.
Correct. It's not going to have 7.5 inches chopped out of the middle or whatever. It's going to be a road legal, fully functioning car that just has some of the cues and the stylistic touches of the original Sally Carrera. But it was fun, like I said, to watch them elaborate on the origin of Sally and the challenges of building that. And one of the things that was interesting, I think we've talked about this, but a story that we did about a year ago in Panorama about these two Safari 996s. We think that the Arena Red car in that story might have been the one that was donated to build Sally. So we're going to try and do what we can to substantiate that. But a lot of things point to that.
Interesting.
I'm just wondering, what would a 992 handle like if you cut 7 inches off the wheelbase?
It probably would spin like a top. I mean, you're basically taking stability away from the platform, right?
Yeah, it'll turn quicker though, right?
It could be fun.
Well, if Porsche can build a Classic Club Coupe, they can certainly do this for us.
Just ask Uwe. A little bit on the sadder note, a dear friend of PCA's racing legend, Vic Alford, is no longer with us. Manny, you want to share some of your experiences with Vic? Vic.
Yeah, Vic was he was a legend in the 60s and 70s, primarily with Porsche, and he was one of the few people that loved the 917, where everyone else told nightmare stories about the early days of the 917. He loved it. He also got along great with Ferdinand Piëch, which a lot of people did not. And in fact, Piëch even wrote the foreword on Vic Alford's book. So he was a great friend of PCA. A lot of members got to hear him speak at PCA dinners. I used to joke that I heard him speak so much that I could probably recite every story verbatim. But I did get the opportunity to do a rally one time, a gimmick rally. I was there as president of the club as a guest, and he was the guest speaker. So he put us together in a 996. And I remember that it was in Florida. It was in May. Vic does not like air conditioning, so he asked if we could do it with the windows rolled down. And it was right after lunch, and anyone who knows me knows I can fall asleep very quickly after lunch in a car. And I was terrified of falling asleep terrified of falling asleep while driving, and more importantly, him judging every shift, everything I did while I was driving for 2 hours. So I asked him if he wanted to drive, and he said sure, and I jumped in as navigator, hoping that I would stay awake as well. But it was amazing to watch him drive, just a gimmick rally. Everything was a double clutch. Every time he downshifted, it was heel and toe, but it was effortlessly, like it was just second nature. It was just, and when we missed a couple turns, we had to calculate, how much we missed. And I said, I think it was like a half a mile off. And he was like, well, actually, it was 325 meters, I think.
Wow.
And he's like, does that sound right to you? And I'm like,
sure.
Yeah, sure. You won the Monte Carlo rally. I didn't, so yeah. I will go with what you say.
And didn't he have a photographic memory?
Yeah, he told me that he had a photographic memory, and that's why he was able to memorize the Targa Florio, the Nürburgring so quickly. And he said in interviews that you could blindfold him, spin him around, and stick him anywhere on the Targa Florio, and he would know where he was and what gear to be in and what the next turn was.
Yeah, and unfortunately, his photographic memory was used against me. I met him initially when I was in pretty good shape, and a few years later, I met him, and he goes, "What happened to you?" because I gained a few pounds. So what he remembered of me and the present version of Vu was a little bit different, and that's the type of guy that he was. He was just so approachable. I too got to do a tour with him, and it was very nervous having him in the passenger seat, and he kept himself busy. He signed the sun visor in one of our cars, and he was just a joyful, delightful person, so knowledgeable, and just an amazing driver, a long-standing history, and just coveted by Porsche and coveted by so many PCA fans. So farewell to you, my friend. Hopefully you're racing up there and look down on us and make sure that we stay on the line. So let's go right into the Amelia. The Amelia this year was a little bit different, and then we'll kind of go backwards and talk about works. What do you guys think of the Amelia?
I think as far as the Porsche fan, they had an incredible display of aluminum bodied race cars from Porsche. And the one that I've always wanted to see in person is the one that has it looks like a little airplane wing on top. It's a 550 Spider.
Oh, yeah.
So, big wing right over top.
It almost looks like an add-on.
It was. I mean, and I think the story goes that it did so well that Huschka von Hanstein, the PR and racing director at the time, immediately went to protest it because it wasn't a factory entry because it was doing so well. As you can imagine, now what we know about aerodynamics, it was just a giant wing on top of this car. So I'd never seen that car in person. I saw pictures of it on the Road Scholars Instagram, so I'm glad that came out. And they had, I think Bruce Canepa's 917, some 956s, 62s. It's a good showing of Porsche cars. I got a lot of comments that there were less cars overall, which I couldn't answer to why. Either they're doing that on purpose, or maybe people just didn't show up this time because of COVID concerns. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I would also say there's still plenty. Like, I still didn't get to see everything. I mean, there was a lot of cars, and it's just obviously not just the Porsche mark, but on the other side of the field, just old school, 20-foot cars that I don't even know the brand of. There's still a lot of amazing cars to see.
Yeah, it was beautiful weather. It was not a bad way to spend a sunny afternoon.
Yeah, and Porsche had a nice big stage on there, and center stage was our beauty. Uwe, here's where you can jump in. It had our Classic Club Coupe. But before we talk about the details of the Classic Club Coupe, let's talk about Works Reunion. We had an amazing event. Who wants to share the details of the event?
Well, why don't you tell us, since you...
I set it up for myself. We had a record amount of cars to be judged, 165 cars to be judged. We had close to 700 cars in the corral. We had a 996 corral. I think the 996 corral has 50-some cars. Friends and family of the Ingrams, I believe, brought like 9 off-road Cayennes. Jerry Peters brought modified Outlaw 356. I mean, we had 27 exhibitors. Again, the largest ever, and it looked to me. Unfortunately, I'm typically tethered to the stage during the whole event, so I only can see like the radius around the stage. But you guys that were walking around, how did it feel to you? Did it feel bigger? Did it feel the same? Or
well, it was a 959 we had.
Oh yeah,
we had a 918
Carrera GT,
2 Carrera GTs,
2 Carrera GTs.
Yeah.
I didn't even get to see them.
Yeah, it was a yellow and I think was it a silver one?
I don't think I saw the silver one. Like Vu, I didn't get around the whole show doing some video.
Yeah, it was. You could spend all day, especially in the corral. It was just because some of the best cars are in the corral. They're just not on the judge field, but we do the corral by model too. So you can see all the Caymans, all the Boxsters together. It was once again, the weather was phenomenal. Great food at the food trucks. It was definitely a record turnout, and I was glad to be back to normal.
The judge cars, it's always impressive to go see them, which is where all the vendors are. You walk over to the corral, though, and I kid you not, you look down the fairway and you can't see the end of the Porsches. There are so many Porsches, right? It's a sea of Porsches. You can't see the end.
Yeah. So, Uwe, this was the first time you had been to Works Reunion, Amelia Island, I believe. What was it like for you for the first time?
For me, it was a wonderful event at a perfect location, and of course, on stage, my personal superstar.
Yes. And what he's referring to is the worldwide reveal of the Classic Club Coupe. And thank you to Porsche for actually providing the stage and the LCD screen that we had this year. They've stepped it up for our event, so I think we're going to have to plan on having that year after year. But it was really a wonderful foundation for us to pull the covers off the Classic Club Coupe. And I think we definitely made some people, jaws drop as they saw it, because they had no idea that we were going to unveil a new car, an older car, a restored car, and for us to have chosen a 996 to be restored. So I think for us to talk more about the Classic Club Coupe, maybe Uwe, we'll talk about. And Manny, you were there also when we the idea started, and there's some photos of me. I happened to bring some In-N-Out burger memorabilia with me to the event because that's where it all started for this car.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was the first or second meeting we had, and the idea was posed as to because we had done a restoration of a '73 911T. Back at was it 2008? I think it debuted.
Yeah, I think we raffled.
2008, excuse me, 2011 at Savannah Parade.
Savannah, yep.
We revealed it, and that was our first really cooperation with Porsche Classic, and so we wanted to do something again. And of course, they brought the idea of a newer car, and we zeroed in on the 996. But at the time, we loved the Sport Classic 997. That never came to the U.S. So I remember us bringing that up and talking about a GT3 engine, talking about the double bubble roof, and everything we said. I remember Mr. Alex Fabig going, shaking his head that there's no way they can do that.
Our beloved friend Alex, Mr. Fabig. But thankfully, we had Uwe, our
Uwe
yes man, sitting right next to him.
No, we can do that. We can do that.
And we really did throw every single wish. If you're developing a car, a potential project, like why not ask for the moon? Honestly, we didn't think that we would get everything, but Uwe, what was it like when we threw out there, double bubble roof, GT3 engine, transmission, suspension, Sport Classic themed interior, Sport Classic exterior, Ducktail, Fuchs wheels. I mean, that's just a smattering of what we asked for. You always said yes, but deep down inside, what were you thinking?
Honestly, when I heard about this idea, I was very motivated to realize this project, to build this car. But of course, I knew that this would be challenging. Most of those special features we never did before. But on the other hand, I know what my team is able to do. This was the most important thing and the most important point. I told you all the time, yes, we can. We'll make it.
Well, the thing with Uwe and Porsche Classic, when we do a project with them, and same thing with Porsche exclusive, our buddy Boris, it's always a statement, right? It's always a statement when we pick a project car that, when I was looking for a donor car for the 73T, I found a good number of examples that were not in too bad of a shape. But the car that Porsche Classic chose to restore was a basket case that I found on eBay. Now, the 996 that we found wasn't as well, maybe it was, it wasn't as bad as the basket case of the 73, but it was in a poor state of disrepair that was sitting in the back lot of a local Porsche dealership that barely ran. The rear suspension was broken, but it was just a plain Jane 99 C2, an early 98 build, which we thought was the coolest thing about the car. It was an early build car, but it was just kind of left to be forgotten. And then we picked it up and sent it over to first to PCNA for them to kind of look over the car and get it into a more shippable condition. And then it was flown over to you all. And what was it like when you saw the car for the first time?
Yes, the car. We are used to receive cars in a bad state, in a bad condition. But in my mind, in my head, of course, I knew the master plan.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what we want to create. So it doesn't matter the bad state and the bad condition. So we just used the body shell and the other things. Of course, we would take new or work it on by hand. So I was very, very relaxed when I saw this 996 arriving.
So the 73T restoration, although it was a basket case, it was, stripping that car down and building it back to pretty much stock condition and utilizing Porsche Classic parts. I know you even brought back some of the artisans or the folks that worked on the 73Ts on the production line. You brought some of those folks back. You used jigs that Porsche Classic had saved to just measure out the car. But here, the 996 project was quite different because you weren't restoring it to original condition. We are now throwing at you to transform this car into a car that never existed. And maybe you can share with folks sort of the challenges of, the requests that we made and what you had to do to the car to make it all work.
Yes. So as you already mentioned, our main business is to restore Porsche original cars into the original state and in the factory new state. This is what we do every day. This project, this is an absolutely unique car, full of special features, of unique things. So every day we discussed several points. This was not an automatically running show. We shared our thoughts, we shared our experience all the time. And we did it step by step. The challenges were more or less tricky or not so, because we have the skills and the team. They like such unique projects because they are as well humans and they're normal business. Of course, they like it as well. But as a unique, special factory one-off is some over the top.
Yeah, and you can definitely feel that when you visit the Porsche Classic facility, that people there, yes, they are working, but they are very passionate about what they do. And when they're creating one-off pieces, I know we created some over at Exclusive, the unique threads on the steering wheel and such, like that was all handmade. And it takes a level of passion to do it, and it's just not their standard daily job that they're doing. One of the things that people don't understand is, you could take someone here stateside could take a 996 to a local shop and try to make modifications to a car in similar fashion to what we did for the Classic Club Coupe. But when Porsche does it, there's a lot more behind it because you have to stand behind it. So maybe, Manny, you want to share with folks like things they do to make sure that these modifications work.
Yeah, so obviously when this car came out on the forums, people were saying, I want to build a car that looks just like this car. I love the look of it. And yeah, you can buy a tail for 996, a Ducktail. There's aftermarket people that sell it. I know when I asked for the double bubble roof, in my head, I thought, well, I'll just order a 997 from the Sport Classic and just stick it on top. It can't be that hard. But there's more to that when a manufacturer does this, because everything has to adhere to safety regulations and even aerodynamic. Because I know you'll go into how a lot of this stuff was tested in a wind tunnel, which I can guarantee you the people who are making these aftermarket are not doing this. They're doing it for more aesthetics, but not so much functionality. But this all had to from the height of the brake light, everything had to be within spec for the different governments and regulations. So it was a tall asking order for a one of one car that they were going to build. This isn't like you said, a shop that says we can do this, we can do this. We watched this on shows on on Motor Trend TV. All these in 1 hour they modify this car, and there's nobody checking them. There's no government regulation saying no, you can't do that.
Right.
Porsche doing this, everything's on them eyes wise.
Right, and it's not just, as Uwe said, it wasn't not just bolting things in. You change the shape of the roof, you add a ducktail, you're using a GT3 front bumper, GT3 side aprons, like that all changes the aerodynamics of the car. And I think what Manny was hinting to make sure that all of that works, there's a vehicle that you call Frankenstein, right, Uwe?
Right, that's a funny story around. One of the most important thing is we are not talking about a show car to display. No, we are talking about a car which works amazing. So a wonderful performance, but to make this, to clarify this, to make this sure, we need a lot of testings. So, but we don't want to use this new car to test it tough and hard. So we would lost the factory new state. So the idea behind was, let's take a GT3 from the museum and just
let's just back and let's just stop right there. How do you make a request of, can we borrow this GT3 from the museum? We're just going to do a little testing on it.
Be sure this was not that easy that it sounds. Of course, the colleagues of the museum, they have they are responsible for taking care of those cars, and they ask twice, guys, what do you want to do? Tell me the truth, and let's talk about this crazy story. But at the end of the day, they were of course excited as well, and they gave us the car, and we fixed those parts we wanted to test. And of course, such a car must have a special name. We call this car Frankenstein because it looks that ugly. And but it was very helpful for realize all those testings.
And that's the important part, is like you said, this was not just a exercise in design. It wasn't just for a show car. Like you're building this car expecting that someone is going to drive it at speed and enjoy it for what it is. And you need to test to make sure that everything that you've done to that car is going to work. Obviously, we wouldn't want you to flog a brand new car. So you borrow a car from the museum, do similar changes to it, and you measure things out. Pretty darn cool. Now, we've talked about sort of the obvious things that you've bolted onto the car in terms of like the engine, the transmission, the roof itself, and we say ducktail, but to adapt a ducktail to a 996, there was a lot of things, and the roof as well. There were a lot of things that were done by hand, the old school way. Maybe you can elaborate on that.
Absolutely. So the basic idea regarding the ducktail was the shape of the 997 ducktail was already perfect, but the part itself doesn't fit on the 996. So this was the challenge. So what we did, we are very experienced in glass fiber works. So we did our own tool. We took the shape of the real lid from the 997 Sport Classic, and we did a tool for the 996 basic lid, real lid, and then in combination we created both parts from glass fiber and put them together. Sounds that easy, but took about 3 months.
Wow. And the transition piece below the rear window, that goes in between the window and the ducktail, that too was a custom piece.
Exactly. So when we had fixed the rear ducktail spoiler, and Grant Larson, our designer, came to the factory restoration, and we showed him the result, and he double checked it, and he wasn't happy. Because the line of the from the roof, the rear window, and the ducktail wasn't perfect enough. So the plate between, he told us we have to change the shape, and this was as well 100% handmade, but fortunately we have one guy in our body workshop. He's used to do such things, and fortunately he was successful.
Yeah, and it looks factory. It looks very perfect. It follows the shape and the artisan and the skill set that he has to make that piece. It's just amazing, and it carries on. Was he the same person that did the double bubble roof as well?
Right, exactly.
He's our guy, right?
It's his name is Marian, and double bubble roof as well. This special plate was his work.
Yeah, and I know when we originally asked for the double bubble roof, we didn't know if we were going to get a quote unquote real double bubble roof because we weren't sure if you could remove the existing, I think it was a sunroof roof, and then put on another roof, or it would just be a double bubble skin above the existing roof. But we or you did it the correct way. It's not just a skin that's applied above the existing roof. It actually replaced the original roof.
Right. As Manny already mentioned, we are talking about legal things, warranty, and we are the Porsche factory. So it must be 100% safe, 100% legal, and so a compromise isn't allowed.
Right. And speaking of no compromise, can you share with us, adapting the GT3 drivetrain, transmission, engine, suspension, and brakes? What did you have to do to the base, C2 frame and such to adapt the higher performance level equipment?
So on one hand, it was more or less easy to order those parts from our warehouse, but this was not plug and play because the body frame, there are different fixing points. There are different construction behind. And this doesn't fit. This is not matching. So we have to figure out with our colleagues from the development department, Weissach. They shared with us the basic construction plans from this year. From the 996 Carrera as well, from the 996 GT3 generation 1 and 2. So we figure out what we have to change, what we have to weld, where we must create more body stability. And this took as well some weeks to discuss, to figure out. And at the end, we had this master plan. We know what to do, and then we could realize this.
Yeah, and just again, we haven't shared so many of the in construction photos just yet. We did a video drop. Damon, we talked the video that we dropped recently on it.
Yeah, there was a secret unveiling on February 14th where the PCA Executive Council was able to see the car for the first time. And the video is a mix of footage, beautiful footage of the car there, as well as at Works Reunion, and PCA President Tom Gorsuch talks about the project as well. It's a very cool video if you want to see how the light plays on the car, as the camera is sweeping by. It's worth checking out on our YouTube channel. It's a short watch, a little over a minute.
It's a great teaser. We have, I believe, you're planning on. We've took a ton of footage, tons of interviews. Uwe's included lots of interviews to talk about the process of the car and how it came to be. And that full video, I think, is probably going to be sometime
in June.
In June? Okay.
Well, we should be debuting it at a parade if everything goes to plan. And it should have footage from the when the car was being built in Porsche Classic in Germany, as well as the footage that we've gotten here in the U.S.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit. There's a lot of Easter eggs on this car because Uwe is not only, he and the team at Porsche Classic didn't just deliver on the things that we asked for. When we saw the car, and every now and again he would drop hints of, did you see this? Did you see that? Like, there's more and more Easter eggs on this car that maybe we should share. I mean, there's the interior, probably the most stunning thing. I think Grant is probably most proud about is the interior of the car. Probably the most challenging thing to do on this interior was the very unique Pepita interior. You want to talk about that, Manny?
I want to know, since I only did like the first or second meeting, and then I finished my term on the executive council, and then I went into a dark mode where I didn't, not until I heard the term Project Gray.
Yeah.
And then I realized that was the car that we had talked about many years ago. Was that hand-woven leather ever done on any other Porsche?
I don't think so, right, Uwe? That was the first time that so the pattern inside the material on seat inserts in the Classic Club Coupe is a Pepita pattern, but most of the times Pepita pattern is a cloth material, whereas this is a woven leather material, and I don't believe it's been in any other car, right?
No, you're absolutely right. This was the absolutely first time we did this.
Yeah, and the challenges that Grant and Uwe had shared was, if you can imagine, working with a fabric is much easier than working with leather. Then you compound the issue of leather by working with woven leather. So now maybe there's a thin leather that you can manipulate and make it sit properly or wrap around a corner. But now when you weave that leather, it's extra thick. And again, unlike a local shop that might just find some material and throw it around a door panel or something like that, the manufacturer has to not only make it look good, make it fit, but there are properties of this leather and regulations that whatever it's covering, flammability, durability, they're selling it as, it's their pride and work, and it has to meet these standards. And how did you get around working with this thick material versus what they normally do?
Yes, we can't change the thickness of the woven leather. So we have to figure out what could be the solution. And there was just one solution. We have to work on those parts we want to cover with this woven leather. This sounds as well very easy, but it isn't. Because to make things thinner, there you have the risk to hurt the stability and the functionality. So this is as well craftsmanship, and you need to have best of skills and a really good eyes for recognize when you reach the level of thinness. Then you can cover the part with this woven leather.
Yeah, and then the surprises in the interior continue even past the leather. Most people just kind of look into the interior and look at the seats, but if you look up, the material that is covering the roof, I believe, is fairly unique to the Classic Club Coupe as well.
Absolutely, this Alcantara looks so amazing, wonderful, and fortunately, this material is good to work on. And Peter, what is our saddler, is very familiar with this stuff. So this works very smooth, and of course you know it. The result is as well wonderful.
Yeah, and it's not just standard Alcantara or Racetech, whatever the new name is, but it's perforated, so it has a completely different look than your standard Alcantara, and it's where, you know, we've talked about this in other shows where I personally am not a fan on like Alcantara on the steering wheel and shift knob and this and that and the other, and the Classic Club Coupe. I'm not saying it's because I don't like it, but you know, I think where we have the Alcantara in the Classic Club Coupe is exactly where it should be, and there isn't Alcantara where I don't think it shouldn't be. Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
I think you just did it. You did it just right, and you know, and it continues on to the gauges of the car as well. The theme of the Sport Classic continues with the stripes on the gauges. The use of Club Blau. Manny, did you catch the hints of Club Blau? Because we didn't overdo it on this car. Where did you see Club Blau on it?
I believe I saw it on the center. What's it called? The little stripe.
The center marker.
Center marker, yep, of the steering wheel at the 12 o'clock position.
I don't think it's called that though, but I'll go with that right now. And there was it was on the stripes.
It was bordering on the stripes. The side stripes was actually unique. That was a Grant Larson design, and a little bit of Club Blau there. If you had looked at the caliper, the brake calipers, they were black brake calipers with Porsche and Club Blau, which was very cool. If you looked at the wheels, and we'll talk about how unique the wheels are, these Fuchs, 18-inch Fuchs, they had Porsche on the lip of the wheel as well in Club Blau.
And that was a pretty big deal, having the word Porsche.
Absolutely.
Because the last time I can remember where the word Porsche was on the rim or the wheel like that was the Speedline 3.6.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anything happened in between then and now, but that's I hadn't seen that since '94.
And the idea of having a Fuchs, you know, traditional Fuchs look on a modern car. We see wheels out there. There's some aftermarket companies that do this. But Uwe, maybe you can share why the wheels on the Classic Club Coupe are actually very, very unique, and they are one of one.
Yes, you mentioned it already. So we are talking and working together with Fuchs, the factory. We figured out together to, on one hand, creating a unique wheel, but with a stamp, with the special features for the Porsche Club of America. So the result is absolutely matching to the car. What we plan is to bring this car in our production, in our product warehouse. So, but I think it's a wheel is the shoes of a car. So we did a great design step in the right direction.
You're absolutely right. The wheels make a difference very much on the presentation of the car. And I'll share a little Porsche Club insider here. When the car was just about ready, we did a Teams meeting with Uwe and the crew, and they gave us a glimpse of the Classic Club Coupe. But at the time, it was wearing like these bright red or bright orange, I don't know what kind, I don't remember which wheels they were, but they weren't the Fuchs wheels because they weren't ready just yet. And the car was still stunning, but we didn't know how truly stunning the car would be until we saw it at the unveiling at Porsche Cars North America in Atlanta, because we had never seen it with its Fuchs on. And to see it with the Fuchs on, it really does transform the car. Wheels make a huge difference. And I'm glad we chose 18-inch wheels for the 996. As you know, a lot of people now go 19s and 20s. Is there an I mean, I prefer the 18, but Uwe, is there an engineering reason to go with an 18-inch wheel for a 996?
Yes, very, very important point, because once again, of course, we would be able to do 19, 20, 21, everything would be possible. But Then we wouldn't have a technical perfect car. Then we would walk into the direction show car, because the performance of this car must be absolutely GT3-like, with all this perfection and fitting this big wheels, oversized wheels would be perhaps look good, but it doesn't work.
Yeah. So speaking of GT3 performance, obviously we haven't driven the Classic Club Coupe at speed or anything like that, because we want to keep it as new as possible for, its new owner. But did you get a chance to drive, Frankenstein, what the Classic Club Coupe was similar to? What's the driving experience like of a GT3 engine car with less aero, or the aero that you've designed for the Classic Club Coupe?
And where was this driving done? Because, and the reason I ask is because I was amazed that there was no photos of this car leaked out.
Yeah.
And I would think that if I saw a 996 with a ducktail and I could see a double bubble roof, I would get my phone out very quickly and start taking pictures, because this was something I'd never seen before. So was it driven at Weissach? Was it driven at night? How did you hide from people taking pictures of this car?
Good question. Of course, you must drive this car middle in the night. No traffic, no guys, and you have to drive it on tracks. No traffic. Far away from the city, to small villages, less people. Old people, no smartphones, no Instagram, no Facebook, those things. Yes.
So there you go. If you're in Germany, you want to stay up late because you might catch some very important cars.
And before I forget, this is why I love Porsche and just their attention to detail and how they obsess over it. So the night before the big reveal, we go back to the golf course. Because once again, we are in the middle of the night when no one's there. We're going to unload the Club Coupe and put it on display so no one can take pictures of it, no one can see it. And it was a whole project of getting this thing off the trailer, then putting it on the golf course, and rolling it up on the platform. And once they had it on the platform, it was and I'm not joking, this was a high-level discussion, because they have never been presented with the dilemma. How to position the wheels, because they had never had the word Porsche. Right. They weren't sure where Porsche goes, where the stem goes, how the crest goes. I think they almost made a call to Germany because they were so worried about not having it correctly and what the Porsche enthusiasts would say if this car wasn't presented. So I think we left before they finally decided.
We figured there was too many chefs in the kitchen, so we left. And for those of you that don't know, is if you have your center cap on your wheel, the bottom of the crest always points to the valve stem, right? But now with the Classic Club Coupe, 180 degrees from the stem is where it has the Porsche lettering in Club Blau. So that was the dilemma, and we didn't want to make that call, so we left. And so they presented it, I believe, in the traditional way, where the valve stem was at the 6 o'clock point, and the center cap was pointed appropriately. But we definitely made sure people knew to look up and see the Porsche font. So, Rob, what was the you handled a lot of the press and PR for the Classic Club Coupe. We spent 3 years keeping it a secret, and now we were ready to tell the world. What's been the reaction on the car since the reveal?
Well, the results kind of speak for themselves. I mean, you can Google it and see, but it went really well. A lot of journalists, particularly the ones who are doing a lot of web work, tend to be in their 20s and in their 30s, and that's kind of the demographic sweet spot, I think, right now for the 996. They're the people that really weren't around for the controversy when the 993 gave way to the 996. When they see the headlights of the car, they see GT1. So the reaction was really really strong. It was fun to read a lot of the opinions that were written, almost all positive. I think it was about 100% positive.
Yeah, I would agree, especially those that saw it in person. You can see the photos and you'll be impressed by looking at the photos. But when you see this car in person, the colors, the little bit of the sport gray metallic that sparkles a little bit, changes colors a bit in the light, and the stripes on the car was all hand laid. It's not a sticker set. It was all hand laid, and if you carefully run your finger across the clear above and to see how smooth the surface, it's like the details on this car is probably the best built 996 ever, and I'm sure that's what Uwe and his team was going for. This is top level 996. Had the factory had the opportunity to build such a level car back in the day. What was it, Manny? You mentioned that this was sort of a prequel.
Yeah, I called it the prequel to the Sport Classic. Because Boris Aperdink, who's head of Porsche Exclusive, that was his first project at Porsche, was the Sport Classic, and I had dinner with him one time many years ago, and he told me the whole story over dinner about the Sport Classic. It was fascinating how this car was approved. And, I always remember the part where he said Wendell Wiedeking saw it for the first time, and he looked at it, and because of the paint, it looks like primer. He said, when are you going to paint it? And, of course, that paint now is iconic, and I'm glad they kept that same type of paint. And what's the color now on the Club Coupe?
Sport gray metallic.
Sport gray metallic. Yeah, it's a stunning color. It's subtle, but it fits it perfect, and the lines of the 996 really shine. It's a shame that the prices of 996s have gone up so much because everyone now wants a 996. And the days of the $15,000 996.
There's someone on this podcast that recently bought a 996, and I think he has dreams of building his own version of a Sport Classic. Is that true?
Oh, I'm going to try and steal some of the look. But yeah, I mean, and the timing of when I bought my 996. It was literally, I want to say 2 days after we looked at the car in secret in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago. I got to tell you, I feel like Martha Stewart or somebody, like trading on inside information.
He's like,
I saw this car.
I got to buy a 996 now before everyone buys them all up. Well, so speaking,
right. I felt like the rankest kind of insider trader, but yeah, I did it anyway.
So speaking of approval and inside, what does this project mean to the folks at Porsche, Uwe?
So one for sure. We've pushed the 996, and up to now we received a lot of requests of customers international. So what is possible? So not to copy this car, but are we able to? They want to have the color, for example. They have several requests for a paint job. This Sport gray metallic, but of course, this is just for this car, and all the special features are just for the Classic Club Coupe. But it's interesting to hear that the Porsche enthusiasts have those ideas, and they are motivated to do something with their 996s.
Well, certainly this conversation will continue around the Classic Club Coupe for the remainder of 2022, as we will take this car on a roadshow to all of PCA's national events and some other events that Porsche will like to see the car, and then it'll be destined to be in the garage of hopefully a PCA member down the road. So thank you, Uwe, for really all the time and effort that your team, the support from Porsche Classic AG, Porsche Classic North America, to make this happen. It's only the relationship that PCA and Porsche has that can make this happen. I can't think of any car club or any other manufacturer that takes a car to this level and have this sizable project, and we're so grateful for it. So please thank everyone back over there. Hopefully we'll get to come visit and maybe have a little party together with all the folks that worked on the car. But until then, please pass on our gratitude to them.
So I want to say thank you as well. My complete team, I want to say thank you for this perfect and very nice collaboration. We were a fantastic team, and you did your part to realize this wonderful car. Thanks for my whole team.
And we are looking forward to the next car. I'm just gonna plant that seed. Plant that seed.
So
there.
this car will be that we know for sure. It's going to be at the Porsche Parade in the Poconos in Pennsylvania.
Yep, and it'll definitely be at the Works Reunion in Monterey. I believe it's also slated for the LA Auto Show, and hopefully we'll have it at Unstock as well. So it's going to be, we'll definitely get the information out of where this car will be, because you definitely want to see it in person, and hopefully back at PCA National Headquarters at some point too, and we can do a little unveiling there.
And I guess in some ways, this is part of the Special Wishes department as well.
Sonderwunsch?
Is this because, Grant Larson was assigned as the designer for this, correct?
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Sonderwunsch program, Uwe, or?
Yes, a Sonderwunsch program is the official business field to fulfill those dreams, those ideas. You dream it, we build it. This is the slogan. And yes, but it's not just about classic cars, it's as well the modern cars, which are responsible, another workshop and the colleagues in Zuffenhausen. Yes, it is a very wonderful idea to make dreams come true.
Absolutely, and you made our dreams come true. So again, thank you. Let's switch a little gears a bit. Talk about the Tech Tactics Live we just finished up last night.
Yeah, it was essential tools for beginner DIY maintenance. We were trying to appeal to people who are afraid maybe to work on their own car, who have a newer Porsche. And, sometimes we get so used to having done DIY that we think everyone knows how to do an oil change. But it can be very intimidating if you've never done it, especially, when you're paying $400 or $500 for an oil change. People wonder why it costs that much when they see at their local Quick Lube for $39.99. And obviously it's apples and oranges, but we had Peter Smith on, who's a Goldmeister tech. And, we talked about what tools you should have, even just to do basic maintenance, safety items. And he also told us how much dealerships invest in equipment, training for these technicians to be able to do the maintenance on these cars.
I was a little worried about that topic for Tech Tactics Live because it didn't seem to me very technical, but we had a lot of people on live and it's doing well. And I think, we often forget not everybody has a lift in the garage. Not everybody can do what Damon does and pull a transmission. So it was sort of a reset for those, maybe like Rob. that needs tools. Rob's like, what? I'm just kidding, Rob. I know you work on your own cars. But there were people that certainly appreciated that we kind of rewound and went back to the basics and shared with them some of our favorite tools, and listeners or viewers also shared their favorite tools on there. So that was Tech Tactics Live episode 45. Check that out if you didn't see it then. Damon, what's coming up on the video scene on your side?
So we have a few videos in the hopper right now, and we're aiming to have a Works Reunion recap video for next week, which would be, March 22nd. After that, we have an exhaust sounds video if you want to hear what a bunch of air-cooled Porsches sound like, revving their engines one after the other. We have a video on that. That was taken at Porsche Parade. That should be out on March 29th. Then after that, we also have a video on 964 Carrera RSs. We took Manny's car as sort of the base example for comparison to a Carrera RS European model and an RS America. And I think what was it? A Carrera RS Club Sport as well.
Yeah, the NGT model, which is really rare.
Mm-hmm. I also did a video while I was at the LA Lit Meet that I got to get you the data files for that.
Oh, yep, definitely.
And we're going to be doing a 914 video We have a 914.6 GT, factory GT that it's coming in the town, so that'll be a pretty cool video too.
We always love, there's so many 911s out there that we see on video and other Porsches, but it's nice to come back to the 914.
Very cool. And Mr. Sass, what's up in the panorama world besides finding paper?
Well, only probably the most anticipated story, I think, I don't know, the last 2 or 3 years. The first drive of the GT4 RS happened.
Ooh, I'm so jealous.
A couple of weeks ago.
And you wrote that because you drove it.
Yeah, and it happened just in time to make it into the issue that we're working on right now. So that's what's coming up.
But you can't talk about it right now, right?
Not until the 22nd.
So you can't tell us what you thought of
No, actually, you can talk about it because this will not air for another 10 days.
Oh.
So you can
but
talk
I'd be
about it.
talking about it with you guys
Let's not get
in advance. Of
Uwe, will you tell?
Expiring. Yeah,
Let's not get Rob in trouble because he has to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, this is not a spoiler, but the car is supernaturally good. And, you'll get to read some of the details in the next issue of Panorama.
So jealous.
Did you hold back like Jörg Bergmeister, or did you go flat out?
Yeah, right. I'm sure he wants to tell us he went flat out, but I'm sure he was at quarter throttle.
Yeah. Well, who's in front of me was Patrick Long. And to say that I was a little bit nervous about following him would be a bit of an understatement.
Wow. I can't wait to read it. Can't wait to see the photos. Oh, so jealous.
Oh, yeah, the photos are fantastic, too. Mark Urbano and JF Musial were there, two just incredibly fantastic photographers. So it's going to be good.
Speaking of going to be good, parade registration, I think phase 2 is about to go. Hopefully by the time you read this, you have been registered for Porsche Parade in the Pocono. It's on track to set records, and we are so looking forward to it, especially because it's like 3 hours from PCA's national headquarters. It's going to be a fun time. Works Reunion Monterey, August 19th. Be there. We'll also have information online about registering your car there. And again, you'll see the Classic Club Coupe there. Anything off as we get ready to sign off, gentlemen? All's good. I will ask, if you're listening and you're enjoying the podcast, first, thank you for watching or thank you for listening. We did video for the first time on YouTube. Who knew people want to see our expressions, and they thought it was an added benefit to the podcast. So I guess we'll continue to do that.
I looked at the video, and did you know I'm losing hair?
You didn't realize that? But please, if you're listening or if you're watching, give us a thumbs up, give us a review, share what you like and what you didn't like. Uwe, thank you so much for joining us. This is our first guest from PAG, and I'm glad it was you, and I can't wait to have other folks from PAG join us on the podcast. If you're not currently a PCA member and you own a Porsche, what are you waiting for? Just get your VIN, sign up. It's super easy, $46 a year. Just go to pca.org. And if you don't have a Porsche, you can join our test drive program and we'll help you find one. Until next time, everyone, stay safe and we'll catch you down the road.